So welcome students. I hope you're having a great time at Build Your Epic here today. This AMA is about green tech and the Earth category. And I'm joined by Jen and Maxim, and I'm Justin. We're all cloud advocates here at Microsoft, here to answer any questions that you have on green tech, the Earth category, maybe some past projects, resources that you want to get started and kickstart your ideas as well. It looks like we have a few people here, so this is a forum for you. Please don't be shy. Feel free to type what you are interested in the chat window, and we'll all together work to get you a good answer and get you started as well. In the meantime, while you're thinking of some ideas, I've got a couple links to post in the chat. First of all, if you haven't already registered for the Imagine Cup, you can do that at imaginecup.microsoft.com. Again, we'll post that in the chat in a minute. As well, if you haven't joined the Discord server yet, we're doing a lot of stuff on Discord. And gosh, Maxim, Jen, I think this is the first year we're doing Discord as our primary collaboration for Imagine Cup. Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
So, but it's working really well. There's a lot of interaction and people are really having nice chats, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm seeing lots of traffic. I'm seeing Pablo post all sorts of clarifications to the competition, as well as Jalen and Ali. I think we have on this AMA as well, and so there's some energy there. It's really exciting to see. A couple other announcements is we have the Azure Bootcamp workshops that are happening tomorrow, Saturday, October 9th. And so if you're not as familiar with working with Azure, or you just want a refresher of your skills, be sure to check that out. The links are going to be in the Discord server or on your imaginecup.com account. And then finally, if you want help getting access to Azure itself, we have the Azure student offer for you, Azure for Students. It's really easy to get $100 plus a free tier of credits. You usually type in your .edu address in order to get that as well, but that's a great resource for you just to begin experimenting and building your project as well. So let me pause there before I go into, I've got a few things to talk about and share. And gosh, Jen, you've been part of the league, the Ambassador League for Green Tech in the past too. So we love this topic. But first, let's see if there's any questions from the team. Please don't be shy.
It's an interesting comment in the chat. Let's take a look.
Okay.
And you can come off mute too if you'd like to.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just recap real quick. So Daniel asked, I was thinking of solving the problem of weed control, monitoring soil fertility and disease control. What do you think about that?
I love it.
Jen or Maxim, do you want to take that one first? I've got a couple ideas too.
So I would just mention, and I'll put the link into the chat. We have an entire curriculum on farm to table, and it starts with, using these devices to test for soil, moisture, and all different ways to use Azure services. Honestly, this could really help getting you started. So that's just kind of the getting started piece. Let me just type that in, and then Max, maybe you have ideas.
So I think that's a good idea for a project. I will be just saying real quick that don't look too much right now into the price of industrial or commercial grade component and sensors, because I've looked into those and they're like in the $5,000 to $1,000 each. They're made to be like durable and last for years, and you don't need that to just have a proof of concept. There's a lot of components that are available for like $1 or $2, things like that. Obviously, anything that's going to be around pH or trying to detect the main three chemicals that plants rely on are going to be the top. Like those are going to be super expensive, but like just humidity and pH, you can get that very, very cheap on any providers anywhere of hardware and sensors. But it's a good idea. So I would also try to consider maybe visions, right? Because plants also try to are very specific, and you can probably try to detect those weeds way early on just by looking at it without even having a sensor on place. So that might be one aspect.
And you could also kind of think globally and act locally, like we always say in the green communities. So think about, maybe you don't want to solve the weed problem everywhere. Maybe there's something in your local community that's really causing a problem. I remember there was a hack, right, Justin, that got pretty far up in Imagine Cup maybe 2 years ago. It was in Kenya, I think, for weed detection, right? And they had a little robot that went along the rows of a particular kind of farm looking for raw.
That was one of my favorites. It was actually, I guess in my opinion, a big robot. I think it was about the size of my desk here, and it had enough space. It had wheels, enough space to like deploy seeds or put things in the ground in between, say, like a row. If you are plowing, a large farm or field or whatnot. I think those are good input. I think what I would also add is, you can do some amazing things with fairly cheap sensors, as Maxim mentioned, but the real power comes in when you combine that with a secondary data set or some type of pre-existing knowledge base. That could be in the form of an API. Jen had some great ideas earlier when we were prepping for this call about some great APIs that we'll share with you all as well. But basically taking your primary data input in your IoT solution, that is, pH or nitrogen or other types of cheap sensors, but then say combining that with a reference data set that certain plants have certain nitrogen needs, or certain weeds are particularly susceptible to organic farming or less likely to sprout or be invasive or things like that too. And so when you have a primary data set, and then you can basically map that and model that to a secondary, then you're unlocking new insight. And then you can think about notification scenarios or things that would help, say, a farmer or a decision maker improve their crop yields as well. Yeah. So I think it's a great idea. Would encourage you to check out past Imagine Cup projects and really think about one or two specific areas that you want to solve versus like an end-to-end solution for crop yields or for weed control as well.
I've got one hot tip that keeps percolating in my brain of something that really needs to be fixed, and this is a problem of extinction. So I understand that the type of bananas that we really enjoy are threatened and are potentially, because of climate change, going to become extinct. And I recently heard the same thing about certain varieties of coffee. I think if you can solve this problem, this is something really to take a look at. Look at extinctions. Look at threatened things by climate change.
Yeah, good input. Ian asks a question, can you sketch out major projects in the Earth category? A few directions we can focus on. So I think one of the things that's really interesting about Earth is there is a wide range of problems that you can tackle. However, the problems in our Earth and climate change and other things are really big. And so I think one of the hardest things as an Imagine Cup project to think about is how do you be ambitious enough to create an idea that could really change the world, but focused and experimental enough that you can really make a difference in a relatively short amount of time or with a relatively discrete data set as well. And so I think some of the areas that I personally like to check out is to go to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and look at what are some of the things that major government organizations, what are some of the problems that we as humanity are trying to tackle and address. And that can be some really good idea starters for Earth projects as well. Some of the things that I particularly think are cool is, Jen mentioned agriculture. Agriculture is an area where if we can help humans make better decisions about the resources we're using, it can really make a real difference in the world. Another area that I love is animal welfare. So by thinking about more efficient agriculture, we can also create better outcomes for the animals or even plants or other environment that we are harvesting as well. Anything to add, Jen or Maxim?
I was just we're all popping ideas into the chat, but if someone could take a look at plastic pollution, honestly, this would make me really happy to see. Go ahead, Max.
So one of the things that I'm doing, it's kind of cool because it's part of my day-to-day job, but I'm mentoring teams on capstone projects. So people that needs actual experience before getting out into the wild. So solving kind of that, you need experience to get experience is solving that problem. And one of the things they've been building is analyzing data set for saving elephants. thing that was initially called Project 15. That's something that we were working on, and we're working in collaboration with researchers just to help the planet be a better place for everyone, and especially for elephants. So they've been trying to understand elephant. We had another team that was trying just to detect gunshots because, hey, we don't want to stop poachers from killing the elephant. They may as well live very healthily, but if people go around and kill them afterward, it's not really helping. So we are in total collaboration with them, and we're helping them out. So there are open data sets like that you can look at. Like, so things like the Elephant Listening Project, there's terabytes of data online. And if you're poking into this and you have good ideas, you can reach out to us. We know the people that are in charge of this project, and we can put you in touch and see if something can be done.
Yeah, that's super cool. In the meantime, students, keep the questions coming. One other idea I think I'll just add too is particularly in the past year, the rise of sustainable software engineering as a key concept, not only as a career, but also as a need state and a project into itself. That this concept of sustainable software engineering is that we can write code or build solutions in such a way that minimize the amount of energy that our code is consuming, and therefore make better resources of the hardware or our cloud computing or things that we have there. And it turns out there's a whole kind of line of study and theory around what it means to not only build, clean software or performance software, but to start building sustainable software. And so I think one of the really cool things this year that I'd love to see students tackle is there a set of services or a solution that we can do to help developers and software engineers build with sustainable software practices in mind? It's just an emerging field, and so the early evidence is that not a lot of people are doing it yet, or at least I don't personally see as much evidence of it. Because it's hard and we lack frameworks or libraries or tools with which to really be able to evaluate what does sustainability mean. And so there are some resources out here. There certainly are some resources within Microsoft that I'd encourage that you check out. But I would love to see you tackle something like that this year. And if you do, I promise, DM me on Discord, and I will connect you with people who are also passionate about this and myself, and we'll help you get started there as well.
Good question in the chat. Is there a way to communicate with the host after the MS Teams meet? You want me to answer that? Because we're all on Discord, like the whole time.
Yes. Discord's your answer.
Discord is the answer.
Yep.
And after that, we're on Twitter. And if you look at my name and Jen and Justin, we're all over social media everywhere. And we're on LinkedIn, we're wherever you need us to be. As a team, no, because we're global. Yeah. Personally, I try to get my 8 hours of sleep, but yeah, it's just me.
That's the great thing about Discord, is that we can communicate with each other in any time zone. If we're asleep and you have a question, we can wake up the next morning and say, oh, yeah, just answer it and pick it up from you that and give you some resources there as well. Ayan says, or Abdul, excuse me, says, learners will make a project on a plantation. Abdul, I'd love to hear you share a little bit more about a project on a plantation, what that means to you and such. Sounds a little bit like agriculture, but would love to hear a little bit more. Feel free to type that in the chat window as well.
And then there's a question, a follow-up. Which software should students use for the project? That's a valid and large question.
Mm-hmm.
Which software students will use for projects?
Well, yeah, you want a backend and a front end and some kind of Azure service in there.
Yeah. So the tool that I would recommend normally is VS Code. Like, it's a very good start to do all of this. You might want a few extensions on top of this. So I would look into the extension store for Azure, and there's a whole bunch of them. But obviously, the service that you're going to be using is pretty much going to drive which kind of extension you're going to be installing, right? There is the Azure account that you're going to need if you want to just publish to Azure. But after that, there's different extension for each and every service. So you're publishing static web apps, there's something for that. Functions, there's another one. App service, there's another one. So don't install all of it, just install the one that you're actually going to be using.
I recommend using Azure Static Web Apps for your front end because you could build your React or your Vue or any kind of Jamstack app, and then you can, everything's built in, auth is built in, and Azure Functions are supported out of the box, and everything's running off of GitHub Actions. So you have this nice ecosystem that gets you half of the ways there. Then all you need is some kind of database, and then a nice Azure service, maybe for some machine learning around what your project is using.
And it won't kill your credits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like not at all.
Low
It's
cost.
super inexpensive.
Yep. Low
Yeah.
cost.
I agree. I was thinking about, archetypes or typical projects that were amongst finalists or winning Imagine Cup projects in Earth. And Maxim was talking a little bit more about IoT and cheap devices, as mentioned. So I think there's a very particular cloud architecture or cloud native architecture that I see in Earth projects, but it usually includes some type of IoT solution. That is, that you're ingesting data that's of the Earth or is ingested in real time or batched in some way. You have to have an eventing engine to take that data and store that in the cloud. So that usually includes a database with that primary and a secondary source. We talked a little bit about APIs or other government data sources, reference for plants or weeds. Really powerful projects tend to do some type of processing on that data. Maybe it's a machine learning module that clusters or classifies the data. And then, as Jen said, that's where I think web applications come in, is that you have to have a place to visualize the data and to share it with your users, or maybe even take other user input. For example, farmers. Farmers aren't necessarily software engineers. I'm sure some are, but most of them are perhaps not focused on the code that you're writing. So they need a way to work with your ideas and your data. And so a web app is great for that. Jen posted the web application development and IoT for beginners curriculum too. That is so awesome to check out if you're new to the IoT space or web development. I think we got the web dev one too, don't we, Jen?
Yeah. Yep.
Let me just drop in a very cool link into chat. I'm pretty sure it's not I've not followed all the. I'll try to remove the ENUS from it at least so that people get it in the proper language. The Azure Architecture Browser. It's a little bit higher level, might require a little bit of understanding to it, but there's a ton of ways to structure things, and they explain their reason to structure it in a certain ways. It can be a little bit overwhelming, I'll agree, but if you take the time to look through them, there's some very nice graphs that will just show you kind of the high level concept that Justin was talking about, right? Yeah, we're seeing a whole bunch of event. You cannot just store that into SQL Server. SQL Server is just going to bend. So why would you not pick SQL Server? And they have all those questions already answered in all those different type of architectures, all based on real life scenarios. It's just worth looking through them.
Yeah, that's really good input. I just posted the profiles of the 2021 Imagine Cup winners in the Earth category. So if you want to get a little bit of inspiration for what some winning projects were, that can also, if you learn about those teams, you can also see some of their reference architectures as well. So Roberto asked a really good question. Sorry, Jen, did you want to say more there?
I was just thinking all of these projects were amazing, and especially ProTag, Max.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, ProTag was putting a tag on cows, and helping track their vital health as well, amongst many things on it. Super cool project. Hashtag fake cows. Yes. Oh, that takes me back, Maxim. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that project was about monitoring cows because cows takes a long time to get to maturity until you can process them, right? So the goal with that was to reduce the amount of cows that were lost to disease and injuries and all those kind of things. So they were basically monitoring the cows, making sure that we don't have to restart that process because they generate a lot of CO2, right? So you can have really big impact even on things that don't look very greenish. Just reducing the impact of the process of getting to 2 years to get a grown cow and just be able to process them if you can reduce the amount that are going through that process, you're saving tons and tons of carbons every year.
Yeah. Carbon reduction.
So Roberto asked a great question. Can we use manufactured hardware from other companies and mix them with Microsoft software and services? This is very important because the spirit of MaginCup is innovation. This is not an area where you have to only use Microsoft products. If you want to check the contest requirements, make sure to consult what we do require. But generally speaking, you can take drones, you can take IoT devices, you can even take things from other companies that make software and incorporate that into your project. If you think that is the right technology and the right thing to be using for their project, do it. Do what is natural for you as a developer and a planner and a project lead as well. I think part of the MaginCup is also combining that and mixing that with Microsoft Azure, with Visual Studio, with GitHub, as Maxim mentioned as well. Combining those things, as those should be useful and easy tools for you to make a real difference when you're building your project. So yes, please mix and match.
Yeah. And there's a question about plastic pollution, which is one of my big concerns just as a human being right now. I recently read that babies have more microplastics in their bodies than adults at this point, which I don't know. I was a bit of a green mom. We did cloth diapers and I made all of their baby food and everything. So this is something that really is important to me. If honestly, is there an element in our environment that you think you could tackle around microplastics and how to remove them from the environment, or how to mitigate their impact, or how you can use ocean plastics to create something else? I have a friend who makes sunglasses out of ocean plastics, and Microsoft just recently created the ocean plastic mouse. I just saw it on Twitter. Honestly, there's a lot you can do, but we need to do something about plastic pollution. It's actually really concerning. So I would love to see something around this.
Yeah, for sure. So Abdul asked a couple questions. Please tell me the age level of students with which to participate and how many students are to be in a group. So first of all, I would invite you to check the imaginecup.com requirements and regulations for the contest, as those will be the kind of our official record of that for any detailed questions there. What I can say is that we have a MaginCup and we have a MaginCup Junior. This MaginCup is really aimed for students that are in higher education and are focused on workloads that start to include code and other more advanced skills as well. However, if you are a teacher who's considering secondary education or primary education, particularly at the sort of 8th grade to 12th grade or your country equivalents, we have a MaginCup Junior. Jen, thanks for typing the link into the chat window there as well. So I invite you to check that out if you are also teaching students that are a little bit younger. In terms of group participation, generally we ask that teams be 3 people. Sometimes 4. Definitely check the rules and regulations, though, for specifics on that as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than just saying the age, but basically at least 16 years old is the minimum for the main MaginCup.
It's funny because I feel like I've seen teams of 2 and teams of 4. I'm just trying to think if I've seen 3s. Just the way it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's all right. So there's a whole bunch of rules. We have to follow the rules because it's more complicated than just if you're 16 years old, you're good. No, look into things because it's a global competition, right? So you're getting to different countries and there are different rules per countries, and we want to make sure that we're not getting people that are being paid by us, for example, to do this, right? So if my kid tried to get into the MaginCup, I don't think it would be allowed because I'm a Microsoft employee and that would be a little bit unfair. So those kind of things are all covered in the rules. And that's why we do have to follow the link that I think has been sent by David Molina, where there's a whole bunch of stuff I think in there. Is it the link that David sent?
Yeah, the code of conduct will also help. And when you register for a MaginCup, the link, it's one link away as well. I think, Jen, you made a really good point about teams of 2 and 4, but not 3. This might be a good opportunity to also say, in my observation of Imagine Cup, it doesn't really matter how many people you have, so much as that the roles that each of your team members play. And so there is a maximum, but generally speaking, if you have a team of 2, you want to think of it like as co-founders of maybe a startup, where you have someone who's focused a little bit more on the business concept and the pitch and the idea and the communication and the concept, and maybe one person who focuses a little bit more on the engineering or the design or the outcomes. If you have teams of 3 and 4, you can be a little bit more specialized in the roles that you play. Maybe have a pitch person and a business leader and a founder, but also have a developer and 2 designers. I've seen teams that also have kind of a communications and business lead, but a mechanical engineer or someone who comes from a hardware background to really specialize in the hardware components, and then 1 or more developers or designers that focus that. Generally speaking, it's good to have web development skills in your team. That's super important for ultimately building an app or that as well. So I think if you have a team of 2, just focus on pitch and concept and business and technical skills. Part of the requirements of Imagine Cup is that you build a software solution in some form. So it's important to have those technical skills at least on your team. Daniel asked a good question. Do we need to submit a prototype for the EPIC challenge? And if yes, what software is advised to be used? So I think I caught a post from Pablo on this. So I certainly would encourage you to check the rules for the EPIC challenge just to be sure. But I do not think it's required that you submit a prototype. I think it is optional. And so you can pitch, you can communicate, but you do not need to submit a prototype. Might be kind of a cool thing to attach, though, especially if you already have that part, you're already at that point of your project as well. We have just about 2 minutes left. Any other questions about Earth, especially? A lot of the rules and regulations and competition things are available again on the Discord server, and so you can consult those in your own country. But any other questions about the Earth category or building a great project for sustainability? All right, well, I will close with a couple other things that I think are really near and dear to me. Jen, Maxim, please feel free to do the same as we finish up here. Again, I just really encourage each of you, if you're thinking about a project for Imagine Cup in Earth, think about sustainable software engineering. I really think that that is an area that we have kind of underserved and under-innovated in as a technical community. And so making tools and making it easier for developers and other engineers to build with sustainability in mind, whether that be the awareness component or tools or services that help that, I think would be incredibly powerful. And not only can you do that as an independent project, but you can also think about your own project in agriculture or climate change with sustainable software engineering in mind. That's a great pitch. I think something the judges would really like at Imagine Cup as well, and certainly a new area. The other area I really want to invite you to consider is IoT. I think it's so key to think about IoT scenarios in some form for Earth, because ultimately we're trying to change the planet. We're trying to make it better. And so capturing data through these devices is, I think, a key component of that. Otherwise, Jen or Maxim, any last advice for our students beginning their Imagine Cup journeys?
Not much for me. I have to jump on another one, but I'm going to leave in the chat a little blog, which is a Microsoft Green blog. I have a lot of cool stuff that Microsoft is doing for the planet, for Earth, and your next inspiration may be drawn from there. So I hope that you continue on your green journey, and hope to see you very soon.
Yeah, reach out to us on social media and go green.
All right. Well, thank you all. Make sure to join the Discord server and chat with us, and good luck on your projects. Goodbye.